Hey everybody, welcome back to Harris Family Adventures. We are on the road again. This is footage by Reese as he and I made our way to Asheville, North Carolina. Now you may be thinking, Asheville, North Carolina, I know it's there, Biltmore, and you're right. Biltmore was a destination I had been wanting to visit for a while, and I thought, you know what, let's take advantage of this time we have off and make our way there. This is Nashville as we make our way through the country. It is over 1,000 miles from our home down to Asheville, North Carolina. We did spend a night there before visiting Biltmore the next day. This was a very long drive, as you can imagine. We left at about 3 o'clock in the morning, and we got to our hotel in Asheville at about 7:30. It is a different time zone, but still, it was a very long day. And as you will see, the sun is going down. We are about to approach more eastern Tennessee and then western North Carolina. And here's what I will say about that area. You're about to see pretty soon that it is dark and they are winding roads through those Smoky Mountains. So I would not recommend making that drive, especially the last part of it, at night. Now, we did get some footage here because, yes, we're from Nebraska. More importantly, we're from eastern Nebraska where it is very flat. So the sighting of some mountains, especially with the backdrop of this beautiful sunset, helped a little bit as we made this drive. Again, we were going to Biltmore Estate in North Carolina. So we left on a Monday very early in the morning, spent one night in Asheville, toured the grounds of the Biltmore, came back and stayed the next night. You can see all those dead bugs in my windshield. So sorry, guys, but it is pretty mountain, so I left it in. Anyway, we spent the night in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, and then we made our way back on Wednesday. So all together, it was 3 days and driving over 2,000 miles. Don't know if I recommend that, but I do recommend visiting the Biltmore. We have just about made it to our destination. Again, we're approaching evening. You're starting to see some of the twists and turns. It's a very twisty, turny road. Before we get into the actual Biltmore Estate pictures, of which there are many, so I'm going to start telling you a little bit about it. I've kind of been fascinated more and more with that Gilded Age, which the Biltmore Estate was finished in 1895. So yeah, that late 19th century, I just find that so interesting. And in preparation for this trip, I had started reading some books about the Vanderbilt family. Goodness, they are just all named Cornelius and William, and it can be confusing, but I have enjoyed reading some books about it. I'd actually downloaded a book through Audible called The Last Castle that had been recommended by another YouTuber about the Biltmore. Audiobook isn't great. It's kind of dry, and she doesn't have a great audio book reader. It's read by the author and she's not great at it, but I do think it's interesting to have some information going into it. If you guys watched the Italy videos, you know when we visited Florence, there was so much about the Medici family and I didn't know anything about them. And now coming home and learning about them, I think I would have gotten so much more out of it if I would have known about the Medici family before going to Florence. So I would recommend doing some research on the family and just kind of an understanding of who the people were that came up with this idea to build this grand estate. So yes, it is located in Asheville, North Carolina, which is on the western part of the state. I had never been to North Carolina or Tennessee or Kentucky. We had to drive through Kentucky to get there. I'd never been to those states either, so that was kind of a fun thing to do. This was from our room. We stayed at the Holiday Inn Express in Asheville. It was nice. It met our needs. It had a pool, a nice place to stay, and a free breakfast the next morning. And really, that's what we're going to look for when we're looking for a place to spend the night. We had made reservations for a 10:15 entrance time. I had read we needed to be at the house 15 minutes before that, and that it would take 45 minutes to get from the gates to the house. So this was part of our drive. And again, so sorry guys, but that's what a windshield looks like after 1,100 miles. So we had our tickets. I just had them on my phone. You show them at the gate and then you make this long drive. There are parking lots A, B, C, D, and E. Parking lot A was already filled by the time we got there. We got there a little bit earlier than we had planned. We were kind of just excited to get started. So we probably got there around 9 or so. And then we made this drive. They had said 45 minutes, guys. It did not take us 45 minutes, but don't Don't come for me if it takes you that long. It did not take us. Now, the drive was built this way so that it felt like you were driving through a park, a grand park on a grand scale, as all Biltmore things are. And you don't really see the house until you get there. So anyway, parking lot B was closed, parking lot A was full, so they directed us to parking lot C. I had hoped to park in A and walk, but C was fine. There was, you can tell, a lot of parking spaces still available when we got there, and they had these little station areas, you're about to see it, where you would wait. So there's benches and there's a light, and there's a trolley. When we waited maybe 2 minutes. Then the trolley takes you to the Biltmore. First, we climbed up the steps and kind of just took it in from afar. We knew at that point we had about an hour before we could get in the house. So this is from the steps that are on the other side. This was originally, these steps were built for horses and carriages, so they're kind of cool and they look out over the estate and the fountain. We went in early March, so you're not going to see a lot of the flowers and that type of thing. Also no Christmas decorations, but I also think that meant it wasn't as crowded and it was a little bit less expensive. For me, it was $80 before tax, and for Reese, it was $50 before tax. And then with taxes and service fees, all those fun little things, it is quite expensive. So, I do think it's worth it. We'll talk a little bit more about what the tour looks like. But so this is as we walk towards the house, kind of taking in some of the outside with some video footage here. Over to the right from where we're standing are the old stables. That is where the shops are located. They have a couple of eateries and bathrooms. So as Reese went to the bathroom, I waited outside and took some pictures. They had a lot of pictures throughout the estate showing it in various processes of being built and the family when they were living there. George and his wife Edith and their daughter Cornelia. Now poor George, he only lived 19 more years after it was completed. So he put all of his time and money into it, literally. But anyway, this is as we were entering. They had a very good system, I think, for entering. And then we started the audio tour. So you guys are just going to see a whole bunch of pictures as we do the audio tour. That is included with the cost of admission. How it works is you go in and they give you kind of look like an old school phone type of thing, and you just hold that to your ear, and then as you go throughout the tour, and it's very well marked, they'll say press button number 1, press button number 23, press whatever it happens to be. You hold it up to your ear and you're able to hear not detailed, well, I'll get to that. You're able to hear a description. So like this is the dining room. The ceilings are 7 feet tall, but they didn't talk about some of the other things. So I know there is an option, and I think we saw a couple of times, look at that dining table. Woo. I know we saw a couple of different groups that were kind of behind the ropes, and I think they had paid for that, where it isn't an audio tour, it's an actual tour guide. And if I were to go back again, that's what I would want to do. I would say for each stop, and I believe there was about 30 stops, you hear anywhere from a minute, probably about a minute on average of information about that room. But there's so much in the rooms. Like there's just, I would just have loved to really be able to spend a lot longer there. We'll come back to this. Like I said, our entrance time was 10:15. We probably ended up getting in at about 10:10, and we ended up leaving the house at probably around 11:30 or 11:45. Then we walked around the gardens for a bit also. That was the view from one of the windows. But yeah, I think I could have spent a lot more time there. I know some people had said that they wanted to spend 2 days there, and I can't imagine the way we did it, spending 2 days there. One, we're not huge plant people, so I know that the gardens would take more time. But two, just because you can only get what you can get out of this audio tour. Now, in a bit, we're going to be getting to the library. And George Washington Vanderbilt, who built this home, he was the grandson of the Commodore. This is the tapestry room on the way to the library. But anyway, George Washington Vanderbilt was a huge avid reader. His library was like his prized room in this house. It had, I think, 23,000 books in it. And there was an employee standing there who I think people had just decided to ask some questions to. There were a lot of employees about kind of standing by. I didn't see anybody else asking questions, but she seemed very happy to answer any questions. And so she shared things like the ceiling, this is the library. We're now in the library. This ceiling in the library, somebody asked like, oh, where did that come from? Because it was beautiful and it reminded Reese and I of Italy. And she said, oh yeah, he bought it from Italy. You guys, he bought the ceiling. He bought that from Italy. I don't know how you buy a ceiling. Anyway, so she just had so much information to share, and she just seemed to be very willing to share all of that. This is the grand staircase. This is like a 3-layer chandelier. Beautiful. So cool. So yeah, I don't know if we could have just asked as many questions as we wanted. That was the landscaper, Olmsted. But I would like to just have a tour guide to really share information. Now you can see some scaffolding there. I would say in probably a fifth of the rooms, they are doing work, and it's really just restoration work and just basic maintenance. So they're dusting, but you can imagine dusting here. That was George's bed. Isn't that crazy? Oh my gosh. And they say it looks really small. Oh, sorry, that picture turned out blurry. They say George's bed looks really small, but it actually isn't that small. It's just that the size of the room was so gargantuan. This was the room that was between George and his wife's room. So this was kind of where they could hang out. You can see the sign there. So we would type in 100 and we would hear about how that furniture had a drop arm and how this was kind of the family headquarters. And then we go to his wife, Edith. This was her bedroom. So anyway, if you guys have watched my previous videos, I'll link some of them down below. Edith, her ceiling, I mean, just pristine, 10 out of 10. He was very into art also, so there's a lot of art on the walls. This was a hallway just filled with prints, and it was cool. Like the audio tour told us how these prints are made, and it took a high level of skill. And when you hear that, then you really look, you know, it would have just been a hallway I walked down, but then when you hear that, you're like, oh, let me really look at this. And that was really cool. Here was just another gathering area. This is for the guests to gather up on the 3rd floor. And then we did get to see into probably 6 or 7 guest rooms that were set up, and they all have different names, and a lot of them have their own ensuite bathrooms. You know, just the best of the best. They have like not wallpaper, material on the wall. I don't know what that's called because I don't have that. I just have paint, but it is really cool to see that kind of thing and just to imagine this as someone's home. This is really hard to imagine this as someone's home. And then you say like, oh, you're going to stay in the, let me find one of the names of the rooms. I have them written down here. You're going to stay in the Claude room, or you're going to stay in the Louis the 15th room. Like, do you guys have that? Look at that chimney. It's ceramic. And that was the other thing on the audio tour. They had a variety of people weigh in. So like the person who had restored that chimney, she weighed in about the process of that. So that was cool. This is where Edith gave birth to their daughter, Cornelia. That's a big window seat you see there. Can you, oh my gosh, it's so pretty. So that's why there's a little carriage. And then Cornelia also gave birth to her 2 children there. And it's a beautiful room, but I still told Reese, I'd stick with the hospital for myself. And yes, if you're wondering, if you know Reese, this is the basement. When we went to Venice, he wants to move to Italy. He wants to open a vineyard. He wants to live in Venice in the off season. And now he also wants to build a house like this. This is called the Halloween room. This was down in the basement. That's where the rest of our tour is down in the basement. And they used this room to really showcase a lot more pictures of the building of it. This was the swimming pool. You guys, I love this idea. There's ropes along the side. I don't know if you can really see them, but then guess you could just hold on to the ropes on the side if you got tired swimming. And I just thought I would love that. They can't fill it anymore because it leaks. They tried filling it for a party and it leaked. Here was the gym. It was a state-of-the-art gym at the turn of the century. So really cool to see. Again, down in the basement. I guess I assumed because of Downton Abbey that the basement was not for family usage. And most of it was for things like a pantry. And you can see they had it set up with things that may have been found in there when the house was being used as a family home. And they also showed servants' quarters down in the basement. But I mean, it's like the size of Reese's bedroom, and they have, you know, and they did say like a lot of servants were happy to have a room by themselves. Like a lot of them had shared bedrooms with many siblings growing up. So that was kind of nice. This was the rotisserie room. So they talked on the audio tour. I didn't really understand it, how the rotisserie worked. They had this big kitchen area. I mean, obviously they had several. This was the sink. pretty gross. But that big stove and all the copper pots are original. So those are the types of things that you can learn from it. They had 2 dumb waiters. So there was one of the dumb waiters, and then here's the other one. They had a fake turkey in there. But you can see like the buttons that they would use to send the dumb waiters up and down. There was the servant dining room. Again, bigger than my dining room, but you know, they have a lot. You can see a reflection there of a guy with the audio tour thing up to his ear. And then just a lot more pantries and that type of thing. So overall, it was really cool. I know there's just so many pictures, you guys. That's why I knew I had to do a voiceover, because there was no way I could talk and incorporate these. This is the laundry room. So that's why there's all these sinks there. This was the laundry room. Can you imagine the amount of tablecloths and napkins? Whew, I think laundry for the 3 of us is a lot. That was the drying room. They hung them on those racks, and then it was heated. At first, they'd used heat with steam. They were like, well, that doesn't work. But yes, overall, I loved going. I think I probably would incorporate it with something else. I don't think it's a destination that maybe is its own destination as like a standalone. I think it'd be a great destination to incorporate with some other things. I know Pigeon Forge is nearby, so maybe Dollywood. Now, like I said, we were there early spring, so this is the extent of the gardens at this point. And you can see there's the greenhouse. We did go inside of that as well. I think they call it the conservancy. They have fancy words for things. Reese and I aren't big plant people, so we didn't spend too long. And it is a lot of walking. They do have an elevator. You can use it. I wouldn't, it's scary, but they do have an elevator if you are mobility impaired, but it is still a lot of walking. So yes, then we made the drive to Pigeon Forge to spend the night there, just to kind of shorten our drive a little bit, coming back the next day. My jaw is probably pretty tense there. This was a very curvy, windy drive as well, but it was really pretty. And again, being from Nebraska, we're always here for the mountains. If you would like to go, I would say, again, incorporate it into some kind of trip out there, incorporate some other things. But if you are in the area, I think, hey, you know what? We don't have kings and queens and princes and princesses. We don't have castles. I think this is the closest thing to a castle we probably have. So go see it. Just think about what it would be like to live there. Okay, when we got to Pigeon Forge, it's like a Branson. It's a lot like a Branson. I didn't know that. I just picked the hotel to stay there. It is like Branson. They had this like amusement park kind of area, but it was free to go in. You just paid for the rides. And they had this Ferris wheel that was towering over everything. And Reese could see it forever as we approached, and you could see it from our hotel. So I was like, okay, let's go to the Ferris wheel. So this is from the Ferris wheel. They are enclosed. So that's nice. The cars are enclosed. I wouldn't feel comfortable doing this in open air. It is expensive for Reese and I. It was $32. We went around 3 times. Now, I will say there was only one other car that had people in it. So I don't know if you always get to go around 3 times, or because there was no one else there, we got to do it. It does light up at night, but obviously then you can't see out as far. So yeah, Reese was taking a lot of video footage because he was getting a little freaked out, and so that was kind of distracting him. You can see some of the other kind of little rides. I mean, nothing major. You can see like there's a little roller coaster. It's in the figure 8. So nothing too exciting. They did have a lot of restaurants around there. They had a Paula Deen restaurant. I didn't even know she had restaurants. You can see they had a Dick's Last Resort restaurant there. And then they have a Margaritaville hotel there. And they have like arcades, and you can see like a little ride there. So it's called The Island. That's in Pigeon Forge if you're interested. Again, the whole area of Pigeon Forge seems a lot like Branson, where there's a Titanic museum and there's a Hollywood wax museum there. We didn't do anything else because, again, we did not pick this hotel to like do things. We just picked it to make this drive shorter. Reese had never seen the arch before. You can kind of see it off in the distance there. Guys, he had so much footage of the arch. So this is St. Louis. We were blessed with a cloudy day on the way back, so we didn't have to look into the sun. And the traffic wasn't too bad. Again, it was over 2,000 miles in 3 days, which I probably wouldn't recommend. Let me know down below. Have you been to Pigeon Forge? Have you been to the Biltmore? What was your experience like? Would you like to go there? And as always, if you have any questions, be sure to leave them down below. And if I could answer them, I will do my very best. I probably will just Google it, but yeah, that's all I have for this time. I will see you guys in our next video for our next adventure. Bye.
night.